Hello, everyone. I'm KarmaCut,
And I'm Moydog, and welcome to Command Comms.
the podcast where we talk about everything and anything related to tactical shooters.
All right, it is finally here, the day we've all been waiting for, the day Karma has been waiting for. What
Oh
is the
boy.
topic of today's podcast, Karma?
Today, we're taking a look at squad modding and even modding on a broader sense, just as far as like how it can improve games and how it can extend lifetime and replayability. Just because, the games that we play, Moy, they're pretty niche and they're usually done by indie studios that can't normally crank out the amount of content that AAA games can. So we're gonna dive in and take a look at why are mods important, what mods are out there, the whole kind of modding scene, and then kind of dial it in more specifically on how Squad has addressed these things. But yeah, Moy, so kicking us right off, what are your experience and thoughts on mods as a general kind of system across, any game that you've played?
So, when we're talking about mods, are we talking about actual modifications? Are we talking about community generated content? Like, hey, if someone creates a custom map, or what exactly is the definition of mods?
Sure. So I think to define mods in this case, we have the mods that are actually coded in and, someone has to go in there and do some dev work. And then, like you just brought up, community generated content. While it does do essentially the same thing as mods, I think it's a little bit different and that they're categorized kind of in two different areas. So you have community generated content, which could be mods, but also leads into events. But then more specifically, you have mods that require actual dev work and coding and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I started my FPS career back in the Battlefield 1942 Call of Duty days, Medal of Honor. I mean, you have Battlefield 1942 had probably one of the most popular and well-known mods for Desert Combat mod, which was a huge just rework of the game, and it kind of it. I don't want to say it laid the foundation for future Battlefield games, but it kind of showed what that engine can do and what you can make out of a game like Battlefield into a modern combat. You had helicopters, modern tanks, modern weapons, things like that. And then you even had for a smaller scale game like Call of Duty, the original Call of Duty, which was the World War II version. We're not talking about Modern Warfare or anything like that. Also played a lot of. There was a hardcore realism mod where it added a whole bunch of mechanics that would actually kind of fit right in with Squad with certain kits. You had medics and healing. You had a lot of things that just made it much more hardcore and teamwork oriented. So I think when I started playing a certain game, when I figured out that there was a mod like Desert Combat, I don't know if I ever just dove straight in, just said, "Hey, I'm 100% now just a Desert Combat player." But I would float pretty regularly between Battlefield 1942 and Desert Combat. It would help refresh and just kind of make it feel new, and it felt good to play a game that I'm familiar with, but it almost like a completely new coat of paint on it, if that makes any sense. And
Hmm.
it helped me stay engaged with the game a bit more. It helped me expand my kind of friends and the player base that I would be interacting with without having to like go out and buy another game, which back when I was a little kid, like that was awesome. So I've always had positive experiences, and then with the certain things in Squad, as we'll get into, definitely one of uh, there's actually, now that I think of it, not many games are really supporting mods nowadays, are they?
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I think, a trend that we've seen kind of occur over the past, I'd say, generation or, two-ish of games, is that modding has slowly been more or less phased out of contemporary games. And it's kind of sad to see because so many games were built as mods and eventually became their own games. So we can look at a couple to begin with. Like, so the most relevant being Squad, right? Squad is the successor to Project Reality, which was a Battlefield mod. We can look at
Yeah.
huge things, huge projects like League of Legends and Dota, which were both kind of not necessarily mods, but user generated content from Warcraft 3. You have so many big things, so many amazing games and unique ideas that you let the community generate with modding and just opening up your development tools. And I think that's really strong. When we like even I didn't even think of this until now. Like looking at League of Legends and Dota becoming these huge titans, literally titans of industry, and they were Warcraft 3 mods to begin with. And it's just crazy to see, like, if nothing could show you the power of modding and how important it is and how much like this is needed for the community. And you can kind of say that it's been easier to generate content now with like UE4, and like SDKs are a little bit open for certain games, and just general engine work is more popular now and people are learning game development. But being able to modify an existing product like Squad, you can already see like within Squad itself, we have a Star Wars conversion mod that is Moy. Have you seen how many servers that thing is filling these days?
It's actually impressive. I think
It's
they have
very
what,
impressive.
They have
Three
multiple
full
regions?
servers. Yes, it's insane. It's like
That's impressive.
it is
Good on
very
them, man.
impressive. Yeah, like it's a huge scene. I think it's got untapped potential, and like OWI and just any game studio in general should just weaponize it, because like another game we can talk about is Skyrim. How many people to this day are still playing Skyrim because of modded content? You can always find people still developing things for Skyrim. It's actually crazy. Like the amount of and like all the studio has to do is release the tools, and it's essentially boom, unlimited content for the player base. So I love mods. I play a lot of mods. Like I play a lot of mods for Stellaris, and I know like Hearts of Iron. I see you play a lot of Hearts. Or I've seen you recently at least play some Hearts of Iron.
There's some things that you can do for Hearts of Iron. You have player controlled peace treaties. You can add new factions, just like you can do with Squad and stuff like that. You can do there's a mod that turns Hearts of Iron into World War One, and you can play out the end of days of World War One and see if the Axis powers can survive it. Can do the same thing with World War Two. I mean, the amount of it just goes back on the replayability and the extending the life, or even just creating new life from a game, which is amazing. And it really is surprising when you look at where games like Call of Duty or Battlefield came from, that it's basically dead. You don't have anything like community run servers. You have just dedicated, you have matchmaking, you have all this type of stuff, which is very controlled, and it really wasn't like that before. So you have all of these games like Call of Duty, like Battlefield. When you really look at where they came from, it's really surprising that now there's basically zero user created content. You have things that would have been maybe user generated content like maps or skins or anything like that, and they're now requiring you to pay for it. And it's a huge shift, and it is kind of it seems like these indie devs are like the last bastion of, hey, if you want it, just make it.
Yeah, it's really, really, really cool, because I never got into modding. Like as an individual, I never touched modding until literally 3 weeks ago. And when I started working on it, oh my God, did I see, my eyes opened and I saw what was possible, and it was just, I can never look at any game the same ever again, because like the ability, just the ability to change things to how you want them to be, and to be able to alter and fix things, or maybe you have an idea and be able to like act on that creativity, I think is such a powerful tool. And I don't see any reason why developers or game studios shouldn't enable that. Now, I imagine there must be some financial reason that, Battlefield or Call of Duty and all these other big games, they don't have that anymore. But I mean, it's just, it's almost like, it's almost depressing thinking about, if you make certain things available, how amazing certain things can get, but that tool just needs to be made public. So when I think about modding, I definitely think that it's something that should be pushed. I don't know what's going on there behind the financial curtain as far as like those decisions made of like, well, do we invest time in this?
You think it's a financial thing?
It must
or
be.
Like a control thing. It almost feels like, because all with like DRM and stuff like that, it almost feels like as we become more online, it's like everyone's trying to control. We're not going to go off on this crazy like Big Brother tangent, but it's like a really weird, as we like, you can download your game, you don't get physical copies anymore, but you actually have less control over these games than you have in the past. And when I see something like the Squad Ops mod or Galactic Contention, I'm like, dude, did I time travel? Because this is exactly, it also feels like it's the same type of people who were playing these mods when we were younger, are kind of leading the forefront of still trying to make it happen in today's games. I've even see Postscriptum, I think, just released their SDK, and you
Mm-hmm.
have a complete. I'm actually really interested to see if the SDK release, and there's things from, it's like Chapter Mercury. You have different campaigns. You have the Eastern Front, Africa. You have a whole bunch of stuff that could possibly lift Postscriptum out from its kind of stagnant player base because of modding. And it's something like this where, dude, just make it easy. This SDK we shouldn't have been this far into 2020 without the SDK. I know there's dev problems and whatever, but this is the type of stuff that, Squad is in full release. We're going into V2. You kick off some really good modding support, and I think you got a really, really healthy game in 2021 because of everything that you're giving the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that, you and I have been harping on, like, it's important, and it's so clear how important it is. I don't think, so let me put it this way. I don't think modding can ever take away something from your game. It's extra stuff.
True.
I don't necessarily know. I can't come up with a reason in my mind how, if you enable mods to work properly or you give people access to adjust things, how that could possibly negatively impact your game. So I don't know what the decision goes. Like, I'm imagining it must be a financial decision. It must be something that either, they make the value choice of it's not worth it, or it's, whatever the idea might be. There's something that must go on there that says, hey, we shouldn't allow people to use this. But regardless of what decision, it's out of our control. We just know that it's very important. It should be important. And we've seen so many great games, Squad, League of Legends, all that stuff, all generated from mods, and it's free replayable content for the player base. So now with our initial experience and thoughts on mods, kind of out of the way, current mods right now, I know we've talked about, like, previously, like back in the olden days, mods were a big thing, and since then they've kind of been phased out. Currently, are there any mods for almost any game that you're playing right now?
I feel like you're backing me up into a corner here. That I'm playing right now. You mean like the hardcore mod?
The hardcore mod.
I have played your mod. I've played.
You play a couple other mods, right?
Contention here and there. I have played things like Squad Z in the past, the Starship Troopers mod. I've played a lot of random, whatever crops up, or maybe some modded maps. I haven't, if I'm really trying to think of it, lately in the past few years, honestly, apart from maybe an Arma campaign that I got roped into, but I didn't even realize it was a mod. It just seemed like
we
Arma.
didn't even talk about modding in Arma. That's like one of the biggest things too.
I mean, yeah, you got.
Oh, you got DayZ stand. Oh my God! It's the hole just gets deeper and deeper.
We didn't even put it in the talking points notes. Oh, bad host. Bad host. Yeah, no, but like when I think of it, the more I think of it, it's like, dude, that the mod became a game. DayZ is a game now. Squad is a game now. Postscriptum is a game now. So it's like I technically know, aside from what's lived in Squad, because they're all games now. I guess that's a good thing, But it also there's nothing really new apart from some of the Squad mods. But I just like, all right, I like the mods. All right, I like Squad mods. I like a lot of what a lot of people in the community are putting out. I don't know if maybe the actual browser support or
right. So I was going to touch on that.
Support. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question here is, like, do you think that you and other people don't play mods because they're not accessible? Is that like one of the main roadblocks?
Dude, I hate dealing with it. If I'm going to be honest. Like, I tried to play your mod last week. I did it on stream. Everyone's like, hey, Karma hopped on. Let's go play his mod. I'm like, sweet, dude. I've been trying to play the mod. I clicked the game because your mod is one of the few that is fortunate enough to
be whitelisted.
And because you're whitelisted, you're in the main server browser. Every other mod has to be in the custom browser, which is that cuts like 98% of your traffic away immediately. And then I click it, and Squad has implemented a in-game download of mods now, which is supposed to make it really easy. But it actually corrupted my files, I actually had to completely
Yeah, that is actually
revalidate
busted.
everything.
Did you know that? That's actually, but
I
like,
do know
it's
that. I
so
know that
busted
because I
using the
experienced
in-game
it.
download. Like, it's just, oh god, I don't know
Dude, so
why.
I downloaded it and it froze. And so I Alt F4'd. I had to unsubscribe. I had to revalidate my entire game, which took like half an hour. And then I tried downloading again, didn't work. And then I had to do the whole process again. I had to unsubscribe, go to the workshop, out of game, subscribe, load back in the game, and finally I was in. When I finally went in, the server crashed. So yeah, no, it's seamless transition into modded games.
I'll be honest
Easy.
though, like thinking about like all of my modded experiences, aside from like I'd say Stellaris, like even like Skyrim or like any other
It breaks all
games,
the time,
you
right?
you have to like I remember having to go onto a third-party website. You would have to download the files, you'd have to read a readme, and then you have to drag it into
Yeah.
the right folder, make a new folder, rename this, hit enter. It's just like that honestly, to be fair, that is like the
You know
modding
what? Actually,
experience.
I have an experience with oh man, it's Daisy, the Daisy standalone. They actually have the community has created a launcher. I think Skyrim has the same thing where you have
Yup.
your Skyrim
Yup,
launcher, you have
yup,
a
yup.
Daisy standalone launcher. And so I have played on the day one servers. Smoke, he runs the servers. And so it's a completely modded experience. That has actually been probably the best modded experience that I've had
And
because you
and the
don't go
devs
through
didn't
the
even
game.
make that tool. That's a
Exactly. You
community
don't go through
generated
the
tool.
game. It's crazy. It blows my mind how great the community can make these tools. I don't even have to like click Daisy at all. I just click this Daisy standalone. I pick the server in the own created server browser. It downloads the mods I need. It sorts them. I don't even have to think. Like that stuff, that is cool.
Yeah.
That and it's all from people that are not devs.
Yup. It's incredible like when passionate people who love something, in this case it happens to be games, when you give these people and you enable them with the tools, you give them the tools and you enable them, like they like incredible things are created because these people who are making mods are very obviously passionate about your game and have ideas. Why wouldn't you want to leverage that? You know what I mean? Like that is like an unbelievable, like almost impossible to really conceptualize. Like it's just so much power. It's unlimited. It's just unlimited power.
Unlimited power.
Unlimited power for the community, and people are like really excited, really working on some things. Like I know there is a metric ton of custom faction mods for Squad. You got the French, you got the MEA or the other Middle Eastern coalition thing, the MEC or whatever you call it. You've got the Vietnam mod that's being worked on. You've got so many different things that are being worked on, but it's depressing because none of it is being played unless
And
a
it's
community. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's because it's this almost convoluted way of showing and I know why you have the server browser, you have the custom games, and the custom browser also has any server that's unlicensed. So that is a very distinct point. So I kind of understand the segregation, but yeah, as you were about to say, a community has to basically make a blast and create an event time
Mm-hmm.
to play a modded game. It's very uncommon to just casually load up and say, "Hey, I'm going to play Squad Z today because I want to play some zombies." Like you have to almost be part of like a huge community that owns their own server, decides to load the mod and just funnels everybody in Squad like a blast on the main Squad Discord to like 13,000 people or whatever to get 60 people in.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so difficult because of the server browser, because of how you have to download and subscribe to all these different things. And then half the time you're going to cause crashes and issues like that as well. It's just it's a huge clunky problem. And the sad part is like I'm dedicated to Squad. You're dedicated to Squad.
Mm-hmm.
And I still sometimes like, dude, whatever. I'll play later. Like there's some people who are just like, okay, I'm never touching this again. You know,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like they're gone. It's like I'll stick to the main server browser. I'm not ever going to have a problem if I'm just playing this game. Why would I go through the hassle to download a Galactic Contention mod that's like what 31 gigs, 32 gigs, something like that, only for it to corrupt my entire game, and then I have to revalidate and re-download it all again.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that is a huge pain for people who don't have like streamer or content creator internet. You know, they just a normal person having internet. That's a problem.
Yeah, I think there's only one game recently that I've seen such a seamless implementation of modding, and that was actually like Onward, the VR tactical shooter, where you literally just go in, you click two things, you launch it, and it works. And I don't know if we'll ever get to that point in like Squad or these other games. I mean, like the most popular solution seems to be someone else in the community creates a third-party browser that literally will do all of it for you. I guess the only other game that has done modding implementation like really smoothly would also be Insurgency Source and Stellaris, and those are like built in with the Steam integration. Like it's really easy to find a server. I mean, in the case of Insurgency Source, the mods are client side. They're just cosmetic skin reworks, and it doesn't even like affect gameplay at all.
Yep.
So that was like a really easy implementation. So maybe I can't really, compare Squad and Insurgency on that level. But Stellaris has a really, really easy mod implementation. You download it on the Steam branch or whatever, or Arma now even. They have launchers built in to help with modding, and then it's so easy to sort for the servers that you can join, at least more so than how it's implemented in Squad. And hopefully that changes. I know we saw recently, and I know you brought this up earlier, we saw recently that there was some rumblings in the Squad modding Discord, some drama, some information.
Oh man, we a drama cast now?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I believe it was, I saw it was Karm talking about how they were possibly, very, very, very big disclaimer here, possibly removing the whitelisting requirement and figuring out a better implementation. Now, this is something that we've been talking about in the Squad community for a long time, and something that OWI has been saying that they do for a long time is like make modding better. But they've been working on other things. Things get delayed. I mean, even with V2, we've seen things happen. They're working on things break, the other things take priority. I get how it is in a dev studio. So I'm not sure how much we can put into, that statement of, hey, we might be looking at removing and improving this, because it might come, 6 months down the line or whatever it is. Who knows when OWI will do it. But it's good to see that they're at least aware of the problem, I think. And that at least the conversation is still alive. It's not completely like, yeah, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. They're still more or less in touch with parts of the modding community.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on from there, like we've seen a couple mods. A lot of them, like you said, have been gamey, especially within Squad. You've seen the Alien mod, you've seen the Troopers mod, we've seen what else? The Star Wars mod, we've seen the Zombie mod.
But the thing is, though, they're fun. Like I would like it. The only thing that is preventing me from just kind of playing it from like every once in a while is that it's just so difficult to access.
Right.
And because of that accessibility, you have almost nobody playing it, and you can't just jump in and jump out. I mean, even like the Okis mod that we played, like we had to create a whole event, just a blast to get people in the server. And then even then we were having some issues with some people just trying to subscribe to it, some people having issues with the server. I mean, obviously the DDoS unrelated
DDoS
to that,
did not help. Yeah.
That obviously did not help, but that's what we're talking about. You have to create such a big event to just play a mod. And it's the kind of stuff where I like, do you think the a whitelist, removing the whitelist, this is like, if I could plan out the Squad server browser, when I log in and when I just or log in, what am I talking about? When I just open the game and I click the server browser, I just want to see games. You know, I'm thinking of like Team Fortress 2 or the old Battlefield server browser, where you can just see, and it tells you there's like a little icon that says if it's a
which
mod.
already exists in Squad.
It does. It does, which is true, but it's so segregated that you rarely see it, even though you do see it. So the icon's there, and that way it's a custom game. In the main server browser, usually the name of the mod is also in there. If they have any rules, it's also in the name. Like there's no reason to have it in the custom browser.
I feel like the main thing is just like if you combine the browsers and someone's running a mod, when you double click to enter the server, you just have a pop-up that says, hey, this is not a vanilla squad experience. This server is running this, and this. And then you click OK or download, and then you go.
That button exists. You know what that pop-up is? It's the download mods button.
True.
That's what it is. If I've done that before in like Team Fortress 2 or these older games where I would play and it's like, wait, I'm downloading something. Okay, whatever, I'll try it out. It's like, okay, cool. It's I don't, but it's also I'm not stat tracking. I'm not doing any weird things. I don't really. It's not like a super try-hardy game. So if there's like some rules that are different, like why does it matter that much? As long as if there's a disclaimer, that's cool.
Yeah, so my question is, like, when I try to think from OWI's perspective, right? As far as, let's see, I'm a company, why would I not want to let modding be so easily integrated? Well, either A, we're running into some technical difficulties, which I don't think exist because modding works on the licensed browser right now. Like, we have it works on the main browser. There's some financial reason, which is maybe you want to maintain control over certain things, but even then the SDK is out there and people have access to what they have access to already. And the third would be, I guess fear for a mod overtaking the game. But at that point, as a game company, do you really
I think you gotta
care that much, or it's just like, hey, if you have something that people want to play, but they have to play it on your game, that's still by proxy. They're playing your game and they have to get your game to play it, right? So like, I can't really think of, I don't know. This is just the 5 minutes that I've spent thinking about why you would possibly stop modding or stifle it or try to suppress it in some manner, even if indirectly. I don't know why modding has been so suppressed. It's just, maybe it's a quality check. They want to make sure. But even then, like, you have that disclaimer popping up. And then if people don't like it, they can leave.
Dude, I mean, I get the quality check of it because I've also always said that, and this is for even non-mods, like a game like Squad, if you just pick up and play and you don't know what's going on, you might have a very bad experience if you just join a random server.
Right, but that's why you have the disclaimer, right? It says, hey, this is not a vanilla server.
Dude, have you seen some of the stuff that even like goes on the wrench? Like there was some of it like 3 months ago. There was some mods that got highlighted by the wrench, and I mean they're work in progress and whenever I'm never gonna dump on people who are doing work in progress mods. But so it's highlighted on the wrench. I want to go check it out. There's some hugely broken stuff that now has servers that are, or you can at least download it and run on your own stuff. And I mean, it's the quality check I think is a fair call. The financial thing, I can see that, if you want to control some aspects, that way you encourage people to either buy DLC or buy the game so they can have X, Y, or Z. I can kind of get that. I feel like it's more of a quality thing, and that's especially why they have like the whole license server as well. You need to go through OWI to make sure it's going to be a good experience and things like that. I feel like it's an indie team. It's a very small team. They're very close knit. It's up until probably a couple years ago, it kind of just felt like a bunch of buddies working on a game, and then it kind of just started blowing up. So they're probably very. I know I would be a little bit protective of a bunch of random people all of a sudden creating like a weird Sims RL game and that just flooding your server browser.
Right, I can kind of understand that, but on the same token, like Squad is from PR and it's drawn like that whole like line of how this game came to be was only possible via modding, and it I kind of feel like there should be some recognition as far as like why modding is so important on that note, as far as because that's the origin of the game is modding. So it kind of feels, I don't know if I feel I get a weird vibe when it's kind of like, oh, we don't want modding because, and that's probably more than likely not there. Yeah, that's probably not their argument at all. But their whole idea of like, I just feel like if my game had come from modding, I would pay respect to the modders or make it easier as a priority, because that's like the origins of where you're coming from. But like I said, we can't see behind the curtain. There might be some technical difficulties. There might be some other reason. I don't know. This is just like from the outside perspective. And I'm pretty confident in saying that, like, I think this is the majority of the squad player base perspective when it comes to modding, is no one can figure out why modding is taking so long to be whitelisted. I think almost anyone that looks at modding looks at it and says, why is this not a thing already? Right? Like, why is this not a priority? And I think that's maybe something that OWI can improve on, is like, hey, this is what's going on. This is why modding isn't a thing right now. This is what we have to do to fix it. And these are the steps we're taking. But yeah. I think all the modders are kind of just sitting in the dark right now, waiting for any drop of information they can get, because these people are spending so much time on their mods, and it kind of feels like weird. It kind like, that's the vibe I get. It's just weird to be in this limbo state for so long. And I feel like I'm lucky, like you said. Ops is very fortunate, very, very fortunate that we are whitelisted. And if they're going to keep the whitelisted system, then they need to continue vetting more mods and get them whitelisted. But like, for all the other mods that or people who are dedicated, passionate, working on these amazing maps, amazing factions, amazing crazy game modes, and completely different game styles, who are just sitting on this wealth of content and are unable to get people to play it, is sad. And I would like to see that addressed more than I would like to see, new. Never mind. Anyways.
Yeah, no, okay. It's fair, because I do think, as we're talking about this, I am thinking, I think it is my tinfoil hat it's actually not a tinfoil hat. I mean, PR had the advantage of having a huge studio lay the foundation for their basically
good point.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that everybody's taking for granted, because this is squad development, basically. That's what SC, right? It's their own thing, and it's their own thing is going to have a lot of spaghetti code, and they probably just are now, within the past year or two, getting a really good hey, this is how we do things here, this is how we should train other people to do things here. And so that's probably where a lot of this comes from, and that's also probably why Postscriptum had such a difficult time trying to get theirs out. I don't think it's malice. I don't think it's incompetence either. And I hesitate to say it's financial, even though I'm probably sure a little bit of that has some say in it. But it's really a completely different thing when you're talking about an indie studio's.
This is a good point.
Modding kit.
This is a very good point. And so that's probably, like, if I had to put my money on anything that's for whatever reason is delaying the release of SDKs or the implementation of things, it would probably be the fact that, yeah, Battlefield was a AAA studio that had a whole bunch of money behind it and a big dev team that could implement these things. And even now, when I think about it, games like Insurgency Sandstorm, which also kind of had modding, are not implementing modding correctly well either. Like, so there's a very big example of, like, these indie studios who have made iterations upon actual games when it comes to modding, then are unable to execute as effectively as actual game studios when it comes to releasing their SDK. And that makes sense. That makes sense, because it's an indie studio versus a AAA studio. So I think that is, out of all the reasons for why modding might not be here, is probably the most likely answer, of just it's the resources difference. But still, even then, I truly do think that the things could be done. I'm pretty sure to have gotten some things moving along in this direction better. And I just really do hope that it is a focus moving into 2021 with not only Squad, but Sandstorm, or all the other tactics, maybe like Postscriptum. Like, I know it just released their SDK, so good on Postscriptum, finally got out the door. Beyond the Wire is still in early access, so I don't expect to see an SDK from them anytime soon. And I guess what kind of feels a little bit weird, and I have to be really honest about this, what kind of feels a little bit weird is going back to that financial thing. It almost feels like this is going to be a little controversial, and this is just my honest this is my honest opinion and thoughts. It's like, when it comes to the SDK, and when we look at OWI core and we talk about the financial differences between, like, or motivations, it almost feels like Squad and Offworld is pushing the OWI core harder than SDK because they know that they can profit off of it. So like games like Beyond the Wire and games like Postscriptum, when I truly don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings doing this, but when I say that these games could have for the most part been squad mods, but have been rolled out to, you know, off-world core games, it's a weird vibe. It's a really weird vibe, and that's just like an honest opinion. It's just like, and I think that was like the main controversy with Postscriptum. Remember, because I do believe that when
it was originally going to be,
it was originally going to be a mod, and then it got released as its own game using off-world core. So I don't know if it's like, but the perspective, right? And maybe this is just not our job, but like we're bringing this to attention. The outside perspective of how people view off-world industries and why people get their jimmies all rustled is because when you look at stuff like Beyond the Wire or off-world core or Postscriptum and stuff like that, and then you look at the state of modding and you look what's the resources have gone to, which is most likely off-world core, people get a little upset, right? Because it's a strange place.
Are a little rustled now that you've dove head first.
I know.
The modding.
But like, and I don't mean to like dig on anyone because this is all great stuff. But like, that's the outside perception, and perception is reality. So when people are feeling these things, and I know I'm not the only one who thinks these things. Like, we need communication or a reason or something to kind of explain or help, you know, appease the masses. And I know Crispy has been doing a really good job as community manager. And I know even then, like, OWI has had like issues with like community management, and then they brought on Gatsby, and then they transitioned Gatsby or whatever, and then now we have Crispy, and Crispy's finally settling in. So maybe it's just the growing pains of an indie studio, but these are the problems that I think are present with modding currently. And this is specifically OWI.
We live in unprecedented times, sir. There's a pandemic. Have you gone outside? It is a mess.
I haven't. I'm a gamer. What is outside?
You think they have time to create something to help you create on a game that they created? Do you think? Okay, real talk. I think it, knowing OWI, and like, you know, we've been to the studio, we've met the people, we worked with these people for a while now. I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit of the team kind of regrets releasing the SDK so early. You know, I kind of wish, I kind of feel like they're like, I kind of wish what we're doing right now to fix it was there already, so we didn't make this such a messy process. And I feel like Postscriptum, they've had a bunch of time, like, so the modders can make all the stuff and then implement it into the SDK, which should be a much better experience since it's now a more developed SDK, even though it's still going to have some issues. Like, I still think that, like, what I've heard from the devs and what they are trying to do with things like layer overhauls and factions and making it just easier for modders to just tweak and add it, removing the whitelist, like, it seems like they're trying to lean into this a little bit, and they're trying to right the wrongs of modding past, if we can say that.
I mean, but I don't really get that vibe, because I don't think that there's been any. The only thing
the mods are basically dead except for squad ops.
Right, but that's not the fault of the SDK, right? The SDK functions. The SDK does what it's supposed to do, and people are using it. The issue is in the implementation from modding, from getting it off the SDK and playable. And that doesn't really have anything to do with the SDK so much as it has to do with the server browser and the actual systems or procedures that they put in place there. So that's why, like, I don't really feel like it's a technical issue. It feels like a lack of attention to this problem, or it feels like the priorities are placed somewhere else, and that's I think what confuses or more or less upsets certain people, right? Because it's not like the SDK is broken. The SDK works, and people are using it, and people are making these things, and it's like the ops mod is like a testament to how it works on the main browser, right? It's just like, no one's getting whitelisted, and there is no information on what the system is past whitelisting. That's the issue, right? It's not the technical SDK. It's the implementation.
From the mods that are currently out, so we're going to take your mod off for a second, because we'll talk about this here in a minute. But of the mods that you've seen that you think could be genuinely whitelisted, you had to pick like 3 mods to whitelist.
There's plenty of like, because we're talking about, when we talk about like big mods, we're talking about like total conversion mods, right?
Exactly.
Total conversion mods. But there are small mods, custom maps, one map that someone's made that's really good, gets put into a mod, and you just have to download that one map, and now you have more content. You have more content. And it's nothing, and these maps or factions, like even factions, they're not total conversion factions. Some of them have like maps and a whole bunch of other stuff attached to the faction mod, like the French faction mod. But some factions are literally just a faction. And having that as a singular mod, I don't think causes any quality issues or technical difficulties, because I've seen a lot of these smaller, like, just like, hey, this little tiny thing that we put in, where, like, for example, the helicopter mod. Okay, now the helicopter mod, back when it was released, was an extremely popular mod. It had like a couple of issues with the helicopter sync, but guess what? The squad helicopters in the official version have desync too. So it's not like
I can't get it. Am I the only person in the history that's ever played this game that hated the helicopter mod? Dude, I hated that mod.
So here's the thing: you can hate the mod. I totally stand behind I support your ability to hate a mod. But here's the thing: the communities that want to run it can run it. We're not saying implement the helicopter mod and make it so that every server across the entire browser list is using the helicopter mod. The communities that want to run it will run it, and the communities like yours that don't want to run it don't run it. But it's having that option, right? So if you find something on the modding list that you might like, right? So for example, ProMod has been whitelisted. People who play ProMod, and a whole bunch of servers don't play ProMod, right? But it's that option as a server owner to be able to provide the experience that you want, and not just be like, oh, this is not whitelisted. How do I get this whitelisted? Oh, there's no way to get this whitelisted. Okay, I guess we just don't play the mod.
I agree 100% with, hey, if people want to play the game as everybody, is modeled and skinned as a bunny, and you go, pick carrots on the objective, and that's your mod, you can do that. You can play the game however you want. You can play the helicopter mod. I encourage doing whatever you want with the game. It's just that was like whitelisted, right? Like the helicopter mod. And so it's that kind of stuff where it's just like, how I don't know why. I don't know why other mods aren't. And so that's what we're talking about, is this process, that's the issue that is causing modders headaches. And it's like, dude, if this one is, why aren't we? What's the process? How can we get this? And
yeah, but I totally agree, and I see where you're going with this. But my question is, like, as far as like thinking about what mods should or should not be allowed on the thing, doesn't the community in and of itself, won't they decide which mods are played and which aren't? Like, if it's a good mod, it'll get played. If it's a bad mod, that server is not going to pop, right?
Right now it's not.
So the question, right now it's not. But if they opened it up, right? If they opened it up and went like total hands-off free market, like, the player base would decide. So when we talk about that, then we get into like the other reasons of why wouldn't you let this happen? Maybe it's for financial reasons, right? Or maybe it's because OWI doesn't want Galactic Contention to be a whitelisted mod because copyright reasons. They don't want to get hit by Disney now or something. And that would make sense. But there's no communication there. There's no like, hey, this isn't this. You're not. I mean, the whole process is it needs to be revamped. It needs to be revamped. So hopefully we see something like that.
No, I'll do whatever mods. You should control your own game, and 100% correct. The community, if this was all filtered onto one browser, the cream would rise to the top. The crappy mods that are just broken and unbalanced would basically disappear because nobody would play them. Nobody would want them on the server. 100% agree. It just, the UI needs to be better so we can support the good ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so moving on.
The segue from support the good ones. So Squad Ops hardcore. Yeah, nice one there.
No. So let's talk mods. So we're talking about, we've talked about implementation. We've beat that horse to death, brought it back to life, and beat it again. As far as your ideas, what would you like to see in not the implementation, not the system behind it, but if you could play God and you could change certain things or add certain things, what would it be? Like, what would that Moy Dog mod look like?
A Moy mod.
Mm-hmm.
Moymod. I mean, if I could create something, it would be almost like a campaign, I
Mm.
believe, where your whatever happens in your current game has effects for the next map and the next map, and it would be something like,
Like
you
Rising Storm
know,
2?
something like that, but it would also have effect on your assets. Maybe it would have also something like the. I do kind of like how the factions you can pick, what sub factions you want. Kind of like you can choose your loadout, and now that might have a different effect on how the campaign goes. If you get absolutely stomped on an invasion layer, maybe you are now down all of your heavy armor and you just have some light infantry and for the next map and so on and so forth, and then it culminates with something. I would be thinking of big gameplay overhauls that make people invested in the team and create sense of camaraderie where you could, if you want to, you could be in that one squad throughout the whole campaign. You can be in this one team throughout the campaign and kind of work with each other, build off each other, and have something that creates more of a, hey, this is like a little war than just a 30 minutes of running around with blueberries. So that would be much
Something that
more.
ties everything together, something a little bit more persistent. I totally dig what you're saying. I love that idea.
Yeah. So I think realistically it would be not the hardest thing to implement. It'd probably have some layered tweaks and maybe some gameplay mechanic changes. Not a complete overhaul like something like Galactic Contention, but definitely messing around with, whether it's layouts, tickets, having add-on effects of what happens the next round, that type of stuff. So I definitely, would definitely need a lot of modding work, as well as if you wanted to add, cool things like, dude, let's put like 5 tanks on Gordok and see what happens, like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So it's I encourage you one of these days. I really do. I encourage you to just get in there into the SDK and just like mess around, take a look at what's in there. And it's just like, because I had no experience with the modding SDK like 3 weeks ago. And in the last 2 weeks, learning what I could do and how I could rebalance maps or how I could move mains around, like simple stuff like that. And just knowing that, when I play that vanilla layer on this map or this invasion layer, it's so imbalanced and I have to wait for OWI to, like, the Canadians have too much armor on this invasion layer, and if we could just remove the armor here, it'd be great. Like, that kind of stuff, the ability to go in there and eventually
I can remove all the Canadians. Oh man, I would love to remove the last 6. I tell you what.
yeah,
That'd be great.
like,
Much better game.
that ability to even just make micro balance changes, right? To where you don't have to play annoying maps or you see these things. Because OWI isn't doing this. And we talked about this last week. We only get balance changes when there's content updates, and that's sometimes months at a time. If you could even just let communities, and apparently this might be possible with the new V2 layer system. I was talking to Fab a little bit. Apparently it's possible. But if you could even as a community micro change or balance the existing squad vanilla game, you don't have to go so far as to creating like a whole campaign system or maybe a whole total conversion or a whole new game mode. You could just like, okay, we remove this one BTR. Okay, we're going to move this cap zone. We're going to make this cap zone a little bit bigger. We're going to move the spawns over here. Like that kind of stuff. It really, 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 really makes the game feel a lot more fresh because you have players who can make, even using vanilla assets, new layers, right? New ways to play certain maps, new cap zones or new vehicle loadouts so that you have, a unique feel to a match. Like that little thing, that tiny change that you can make will extend replayability in and of itself. And it's so powerful, just that tiny ability to balance the game as you want to on your server, that I hope that they implement some maybe even non-modding solution to where it's baked into like the server commands or the server config so that players can actually, get in there and tweak things. Because I think that's a way of making the game feel fresh, getting rid of things that are, becoming old problems and just, burning people out because it's like, oh, every time we play this map, I know what's going to happen. The LAV is going to go up on the hill as you shoot us and we can't do anything about it. And it's like, oh my God, the BMP is going to sit on this hill on Kohat and it can see like 2 clicks out. And I know it's just going to tow everything in the valley. And I can't do anything but remove this map from the rotation. Like even that small stuff, I think puts a lot of people at ease. So
yeah, I think that type of stuff should be encouraged. And that's something. When I look at those things,
mhm.
if you have your own tweak to it, if you have a little bit of, this server's take on relatively the same game, but hey, if you actually have seen through your own server community testing, we're having better games, we're having more fun, these objectives are fun, like that stuff, that needs to be on the main server browser. We need to stop the segregation and we need to encourage people to be able to do that easier. And
Mhm.
right now, I mean, this SDK is going to be a bear just to download anyway, just because of what it is. But giving more tools, having the ability to do that, and with this layer overhaul, it does seem like the way that they are implementing it in the SDK is going to be a lot less taxing on people to do those small tweaks. That's stuff that is going to help people play squad more and squad better. And we're not even talking about a galactic contention
Yeah,
style.
we're not talking like it
Rework.
doesn't even have to
These
be that
tiny things.
scope. Just these tiny things that like people find frustrating in a community because like we know like a lot of people that frequent certain
You can have
servers
a
are
no
there.
Fandral server. You could
Yeah.
literally, that's all you do. Just
Mhm.
remove the ATGM's vehicles and just have a server. It'd be completely vanilla and just in brackets like they do in old games. Just say no ATGM vehicles. That could
Yep.
be your game.
That could be the and a lot of people who will
And a
like
lot of
that
people
because
play that
yeah,
server.
a lot of the old like you get to a point and in natural squad progression where you're a new player, everything's new, everything's great, right? And this is for most games. But then like as you play more and more, the tiniest things that happen over and over again really start to wear you down and burn you out. And that's when you start getting jaded, right? It's not it can be these big things, these big problems, like whether it's modding or you don't like the direction the game is going. It can be these big things that turn players away. But a lot of the dedicated players who love the game and are just waiting on certain balance fixes or like these small tweaks, but they never happen, or we have to wait months at a time. Like we want to smoothen that out. I don't see there's a reason why we shouldn't be able to smooth that out ourselves. Unless OWI wants to do constant balance patches, but I don't have the vibe that they want to do that.
It seems out of, and this isn't it's to be seen as a negative, but it seems out of their bandwidth because of just the size of the company, and that's perfectly fine. They
Is it?
know to do constant. I say this all the time on stream, like, oh, you should just fix it. Half I'm memeing, but a little bit I'm like, yeah, I really wish there are more iterative patches. I really wish you could do this a bit more. We sent a bunch of feedback. Like I feel like these type of stuff, in one hand it should, on the other hand, if they're still working, like we've gone back to the Trello board, back and forth throughout these podcasts, dude, there's a lot of behind the scenes, it almost feels like just framework that they're trying to get out. Like that stuff is probably just a huge pain just to finalize. And then if you can, like a lot of the V2 V3 2021 stuff, yeah, there's Panasia, yeah, there's some maps that we don't know about. Dude, a lot of this stuff is probably things that people won't even realize have been changed unless they've been playing a lot,
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of I'm maybe once all of this done we'll get a bit more balanced things, but I don't know, is it too much to ask for iterative patches? Sometimes I feel like it is, sometimes I feel like it isn't. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
I think iterative patches are essential to a game with a living player base. Like, especially
Agreed.
one that is multiplayer, right? Where it's player versus player. Like having things to where you're addressing large and I guess I think about it now. Maybe OWI just doesn't see it as a big problem,
Dude,
right?
no, I got epiphany. The
Mm-hmm.
light bulb turned on. They're doing that. They're doing that because right now the balance changes. It would be a pain because they have to go in every layer and just tweak it. We had this one Kohat layer. We as a I didn't. I'm not a huge Great Britain faction fan. I'm
Mm-hmm.
now with the new Warrior. I will be, but there was a layer of Kohat where the British had until just recently, they've never had a wheeled vehicle other than a Logi.
Mm-hmm.
They were all tracks on Kohat, and the Russians had a Spandrel and a BMP.
Uh-huh.
And the Spandrel itself, it was like direct comparison was basically the Bulldog on the matchup, which is hugely unbalanced.
Yes.
And the way that they now solve a faction balance is they have to go into that specific layer and remove that vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's they have a bunch of layers. So you literally have to just sort through layer on layer on layer on layer on faction balance to have these weird map dependent layer vehicle loadout balance things, when in fact what they're doing right now with the complete layer overhaul is now you have sub faction like, hey, this armored group should be balanced to this armored group, and this will now load in.
So
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, so I kind of understand balance in that regard, but I still think you're going to have these issues, and this is the problem, right? Is most of these balance issues are fringe cases, right? And the thing is that, like, with a game like Squad, with having it so many different weapons, so many different vehicles, so many different maps, so many different locations, the problem is that a lot of the problems are fringe issues, right? It's not like, okay, US is just always overpowered. It's US is overpowered on this map with this asset. And I think even with the layer like problem or with the layer new system, you're still going to run, like, even if I can pick, okay, we can, and so long as these things, the problem is rigidity, okay? If things are set in a way to where this is the one way it is and how it is and no one else is going to touch it or be able to touch it, I think you're still going to run into fringe cases where balance is a problem. Because you're always going to have, there's always going to be changing metas or things that don't line up well on every map. As such, as is the nature with a game as large and as varied as Squad, that you need someone needs to, like, whether it's the community or the game, someone needs to be watching these things and changing them somewhat on a timely basis. And like you said, with V2 new layer system, it might be that, hey, they just said, like, all right, you know what, we're not spending any time going back rebalancing any layers because this new system is going to change everything anyways. And if that is the case, that's fine. I don't know if that's been communicated anywhere, so maybe like that would be a good thing.
Foil hat, man.
Right, yeah. So, but like, if I were to think of a reason, that would be the reasons. Like, V2's coming out, new layer system, why?
Back to the problem we were talking about is communication. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that would be one thing. The next thing I would be talking about, the next thing I would be thinking about is like, okay, so the step after the communication is like, who's going to be doing that? Because I already know. Like, even with V2 and the new layers, like, okay, yeah, you'll be able to pick your loadout, you'll be able to pick your map, but even within that loadout, within that map, you're gonna have balancing issues. It's just natural. It's not gonna work like, it's not gonna work perfectly, just because of, like I said, like, you're gonna run into these fringe cases where if this team picks this against this and this, it's just insanely imbalanced. And it's just like, you're gonna have to find a way. You have to get in there, and that's what, like, game designers like do, and like the balance people, they go in there, and that's why, you know, big studios with multiplayer games have like dedicated people to do these things, is because balance is important. And having these constant tweaks. We can go back to like Tarkov, right? And I guess I don't actually know how Tarkov stacks up to Squad now, but both are indie studios. Tarkov's still pushing out balance patches like at least a couple times a week, I feel like, or they're tweaking something, they're fixing something. If there's one thing I could get for Christmas, it would be more constant hot fixes or balance changes within Squad. That would be the one thing, and also better modding implementation. That's it. That's all I want. That's all I want. But I think we're hitting on things that we've talked about multiple times before. I don't want to talk in circles. So let's keep it rolling. So you were talking about the mods that you would have liked to see, that you would have implemented, which is, you know, maybe a couple balance changes or you know, campaign ideas.
So talk about if people are not familiar, they're probably familiar with Squad Ops Hardcore, but you've introduced a new game mode called Occupation, which is a completely kind of new take on objectives, on how you attack, how you defend, what you even do during Squad. So talk us through Occupation.
Sure. Okay. All right. Let's do it. I'm ready. I'm hyped. Okay. So Occupation, the whole idea behind the Squad Ops Hardcore mod, let's start with the scope of things, because it's a fairly new revamp. We only started working on the revamp, I'd say 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. So 2 to 3 weeks, essentially we've reiterated on a lot of old systems. We've improved them just because we were kind of stagnated on the progress with the mod previously. So now the new direction and kind of push that we're going for is we want to bring the experience that we have in One Life squad operations to the public in a, very consistent kind of manner. So we're axing the One Life from the One Life operations. We're not bringing One Life stuff public. What we're bringing is that feel, that idea that you have a sandbox, you can execute things with your platoon, you require teamwork. We want squad to feel more like the sandbox that we have in the operations, and to really give you that platoon togetherness or just teamwork that sometimes gets segmented or splintered off in public matches. That is the core of all the ideas and all the work and all the changes that we make to the mod. That's what we're trying to achieve. And like I said, very early on in implementation. So I guess we can talk about occupation as a game mode. What is occupation? Occupation, and people, it's so funny because people see the big circle in the center. Occupation is literally a zone or an AO, not a cap zone, an AO where people are encouraged to fight. So we want to be able to take away all the game elements, everything from the game modes like RAS where you have to defend, you have to attack these specific points, to invasion where you have to do this, or even insurgency where your only win condition is to blow up enemy caches. We want to make sure that we can provide as many opportunities or different playstyles or dynamic strategies within one area, if that makes sense. So very interesting stuff. It's playing a lot like Invasion and AAS and Insurgency all together because we have certain phases within Occupation. Basically, the goal is to reduce the enemy's tickets to 0. And what we've done is we've given players a whole bunch of different ways to affect that, to dynamically change that. It's not just about capping points. It's not just about destroying fobs. It's not just about killing enemies. It's not just about hunting enemies or defending or attacking enemies' fobs. It's the fact that we give you all the choices available. So how do we go about doing that? The first way is the AO, which is the main zone. Once again, it's just made to kind of centralize action. The second way that we do that is by giving you a large AO. By creating a larger circle in the center, we're able to open up the entire map for you to do what you want to do. You want to place a fob anywhere you want to. You can place a fob anywhere you want to within the purple circle. And it's a completely different feeling because in RAS, Invasion, Territory Control, Insurgency, you always feel like you have to do something. You feel forced to place your radio or to play a certain meta. But with the way that we've designed Occupation, it's completely up to the commander. There's a lot of things here.
Have you noticed, like, from this implementation, because this phase is fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen maps and gameplay, like you were just mentioning, RAS, AS, Invasion? You can change some things, but you kind of have more or less the same type of meta.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's going to be a meta for Occupation, but in this short, the past week or so, I mean, have you seen some maps play completely different, some tactics emerge? I mean, are people just saying, hey, I'm going to throw this at it and see what works?
So within the past 2 weeks, we've noticed a couple things. Number one is that smaller cap zones, and we kind of knew this from AAS and Invasion, right? Smaller cap zones usually lead to meat grind situations because the options are removed. The mobility, the option to flank or play certain things. If you feel like you are condensed to a small area, then all the players can really do, because they don't have the room to maneuver or to make decisions, they just throw themselves at the enemy. So that was a very clear, which was just pretty much an affirmation of something we already knew, is like small cap zones are bad. Very bad. I think they're bad for all kinds of squad gameplay. The next thing we talk about as far as meta is in this first week of gameplay, I've learned that people don't read. If we give them the information, very few people will go and read it and learn how the game mode works. So a lot of the issues that we have right now is people just don't know what's going on. They look at the game mode, they look at the circle, and they've been so conditioned. Like all these squad players that jump into occupation that don't read anything, they're so conditioned that like when they see a circle, it's a cap zone. I need to like, and you see like all this weird stuff where like the mentality when you look at look at the circle is like they think it's a cap zone. It's not. You don't need to capture the zone to win, and that's very weird for a lot of players to understand. The zone is literally just there to keep you in the area, and we don't see fobs like near mains or like it tucked in the corner of the map. It's literally just the area that you're supposed to be in. Don't worry too much about capturing it. But we have seen a lot of emergent gameplay happen. You'll see a lot of cool things that you don't get in standard squad game modes, because what happens is while you might have a static beginning, you might have a somewhat of a meta when you start up and flush the map from the start. What ends up happening is as things happen, you lose a fob, you take a fob, things happen, they put a new fob up. The map dramatically changes, and all your firefights and everything that you have done plays into what might happen. So every time you go in, like when you look at RAS or Invasion, you kind of know, okay, we either take this cap and we get pushed back here, or we take the E cap and we advance move here. And it's very like linear. You kind of like know where you're going to go. Even in RAS, it's like we kind of know where we're going. In Occupation, we've seen maps completely flip. We've seen really cool things happen. And the fact that the zone is so large means that everything that you do in the zone is relevant. You can take that extra time to flank. You can take that heli drop into the back. You can do so many different things. The freedom is there. And we're even making that circle bigger so that you have even more freedom.
Yeah, I think that's something I was definitely in agreement with. The smaller cap zone makes it feel a little bit too chaotic. But the larger cap zones, you could really just have different takes on how you wanted to approach it, depending on the faction you were on, even just what the enemy team was doing, because you could see, for example, the conventional factions, you could see where their I guess the fob radius was, and you could just kind of try to figure out, okay, they're approaching from here, maybe we set up here. Hey, we currently have, even bodies on the point. Let's get some people into the occupation area while this other squad tries to put some pressure on them from another side. So you definitely do get a lot of different, I guess, strategy and ways to both contest the occupation area, but also take out a fob because it is almost an objective itself. So I think it has a lot of potential, and trying to figure out how you can keep these objective occupation areas large enough to still foster a really good squad experience while developing kind of a really fun meta. I had fun playing on Fallujah and Belia, and yeah, the Lashkar one was a little too focused.
It was I was losing a few brain cells on that layer as well, but
and that's part of testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta find out what works and what doesn't. So I mean, that's the other aspects of it, like having certain amount of people as a presence on the objective, and having a whole bunch of tickets and tickets going up and tickets going down. I mean, it was it felt like an actual game mode. Some of these things that we said earlier in the podcast, they felt like a little gimmicky. They felt like, hey, it's just hey, it's a zombies mod for squad. Like this felt like a game mode that has a lot of potential, and can actually, it kind of felt like when we first were testing out, or you first had on the playtest, like territory control. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I can see something here. Let's like add a little of this, take a little out, and then let's make it into a game mode. So I think y'all are on the right track for Occupation.
Yeah, it's making squad to what like I've always wanted it to be, which is like you take the handcuffs off, right? We untie your hands. You as a commander have the ability. You want to make that super fob? Guess what? You can make that super fob. You want to go hyper aggressive and patrol the region? You can do that. You want to run convoys? Oh, yeah, sure. You can do that in Occupation. You're not going to get punished for running convoys. You want to ambush convoys? Sure. Like that becomes an actual objective. There's so much. Like one of the things that we're implementing tonight is our new 3-phase Occupation like kind of rollout, which is asymmetrical gameplay focused. So that's one of the things that I think is really powerful about Occupation, is that it's so efficient. It's very easy to create these layers because it's just a couple big circles, but we're able to capture the experience of invasion, attack and secure, and insurgency in one game mode. So, for example, in like Fallujah, let's take Fallujah for example. We can get the invasion feel. We set up the cap zone in the circle, very large cap zone. You have to take and hold Fallujah, its occupation. You're going in there. We give insurgents early spawns. So they spawn in the center. They're seated. It's their city. They're holding it. You, as the US, have to get into the city and establish your fob in the city, your base of operations, because you need your base in the purple circle in order to play the game mode. So you have to invade. That's the invasion style of the game mode. And this is something that's really interesting too, is that Occupation has a timeline. There's an early, mid, and late game that's rolling out in 2.1.9. In the early game, you get invasion. You're trying to get into the city. That's the first thing you have to do. You're running convoys in. You're trying to push in, establish your position, hold. Once you get there, you hit the mid game. You're building up your fob. You're trying to defend positions. You're taking key locations in order to secure and mutually support your fob. And then we get to the late game, where insurgents fobs, every fob that the insurgents put down in the purple circle drains 5 tickets, which means in the early game, they might not have that many fobs. It might be, some minor pressure, but it's nothing extreme. But the later that game goes on and the more fobs that they put out, you are incentivized as conventional forces to push out and look to destroy these fobs, which is where you get the insurgency feel. Now, one thing to note is that none of these are hard-coded win conditions. I think that's a very important thing. It's not like Invasion where you lose if you don't get all the way through. It's not like Attack and Defend where you lose if you get rolled back to main. And it's not like Insurgency where you lose if you don't take out enemy halves. You can play this. We've removed the handcuffs to where if you want to play really hyper aggressive patrol style and you want to go through, you want to comb the region, get rid of all the fobs, you can do that. If you want to sit back and you put your fob in the center because you get extra tickets for putting your fob in the center, and you want to just use the super fob and launch, hit and run attacks from the super fob, you can do that. It's like we're trying to give you the whole region, all the tools available to execute each layer as you see fit. And that's, I think, the ability for players to control where they want to play and how they want to play is it's completely a different thought process than when you're locked in onto a linear railroad with RAS Invasion or Insurgency, where it's like, okay, this is the one thing we have to do, and this is like the one way we have to do it. So it's pretty complex. There's a lot of cool things that are possible. The meta has not even begun to develop as people are still learning, and we're still making huge mechanic changes. But it's very exciting, and I've never been more excited to play Squad. Still a little bit, to go. Still some issues, and we're learning every step of the way. But I have to say, I've never been more excited. It's great, and I think going back to that control as a platoon, I think what excites me about this is I have control as a modder. I have that control.
You are in full control.
In full control, and I don't know. That's why I hopped on that modding train or that bandwagon, and I'm really rooting for the modders now because it's like I've seen the light. I truly have, as far as what is possible and how powerful that is. So, yeah, I'm truly excited for this mode, and it's I think it'll be a good time. So I guess my question for you, Moy, is you've heard me ramble on and on and on about my own ops mod stuff. If you had to make a potato mod, and maybe it's just minor gameplay changes, right? And we talked maybe you do a campaign thing. Do we see a potato field mod coming if they whitelist stuff? Because I want to see communities take advantage of this because it's such a huge power. It's such a huge source of replayability and just the decrease of annoying things that you might find in your own games. Maybe it's the Spandrel, like you said, Spandrel free maps. I want to see more people modding.
I will say I will keep it. We've thought about this kind of campaign war thing. I will also say that I'm just now, I guess, collecting and creating an event team to kind of put our heads together, and we're going to try to get a modder on board. Whether that's hey, if you can babysit my daughter, I would love to spend a day on the SDK. I'll take you up on that 100%. But no, we're trying to look into some stuff. I will say the more that I've seen OWI update things to help modders, and the more mods that I have seen just be made, it kind of I'm like, yeah, I can try this out. Why not? So, especially having a server community like the potato fields, I I don't foresee us not having something, but I think it would probably be in the terms of not necessarily full uh, game overhauls or complete new changes like a galactic contention, but probably something like game modes. I've had some ideas for kind of new territory control, kind of a territory control invasion type combination. So you actually have to unlock areas and then push in. It'd be probably be something like that, just to give a new take on how you can actually play squad a little bit uh, less meta-y and rush first point, and hey, 20 minutes later the game ends.
Mm-hmm. No,
So
I
we'll see.
definitely, I'm excited to see what people can think of, and I want you to be able to do what you want to do, no matter what it is. You want to make a bunny mod where you
I'm
just
go-
picking carrots?
yeah,
Do it, Roy.
exactly.
I'm all behind. I'm all for it, dude.
On our server, it'd be taters. We'd have the
Haters. Oh hell yeah,
potatoes,
dude.
but yeah.
uh yeah, I think there's as you can tell, like we're very passionate about squad, we're very passionate about mods, we're very passionate about the future of the game, and it's like I think we're both in agreement when we talk about like it's important to enable user generated or community generated
100%.
content, events, mods, whatever it is. I mean, squad is a community game. That's what it is. Communities are hosting the servers. There's no official servers. It's all communities. It's the communities who are launching the events. It's the communities who are doing the mods. It's almost 50-50, and I think that's what kind of sets it apart from AAA titles, is that like the community here has such a huge say, and it just feels like we just need that little push for more tools, and everything will be a-okay. We'll truly hit the golden age of squad. I think that when modding becomes mainstream, squad will be the best it will ever have been in all time forever. I'll put that's my word right there. I'll bet on that.
I don't disagree, and I do think we're getting there. My glass is half full on V2, V3, and the next years of updates, and I can't wait to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be an exciting new year. I hope 2021. Let's see what you got in store for us this time, huh?
bring out the mods, remove the custom server browser, and let games be games.
Yep, definitely. Oh, I can't wait. But yeah, Moy, another emotionally exhausting podcast, but a good one. I think some things that needed to be talked about were talked about.
Yeah, it's something that is very unique to this game and these types of games. We mentioned Arma as a big one as well. I mean, this is something that in the age of DLC and seasons and perpetual beta games, you don't really get mods, and you especially don't get mods that create new games, at least not now. So I think it's something that everybody here has at least touched on or played in squad. And hey, 100% guys, click the custom server browser, go check it out, jump on some mods like Squad Z or Galactic Contention. I know has been popping. Check out some of the whitelisted stuff that's on your main server browser, and just keep an eye out for new ones.
I want to leave us off with a couple of thoughts, just some things for listeners to think about. Arma 3 was released 7 years ago. It's still being played with a ton of custom content. Project Reality, to this day, is still being played.
Oh,
Think about it.
Crazy.
Think about it. But that's it.
When you go to bed tonight, close your eyes and just think of all the mods that you once loved that are now games. It's sweet dreams are going to be made from just the happy thoughts of the community created content.
But as Moy said, please don't forget to check out all of those mods. There's tons of cool stuff out there. Check us out. You can follow us here on YouTube or on Spotify. We're also on Google. And yeah, what are we gonna do next week, Moy? I'm not sure. What do we do? We're getting close to the end of the year.
They're telling us that we need to turn on the cameras.
We do. We
can't. People have never seen my face. What do I look like?
Well, we're gonna be unmasking the face reveal. Here it comes.
Face reveal.
Oh boy.
Oh man. uh, well, we do have to. We'll come up with something.
We'll
We got.
we'll
It's
figure
end
it
of the
out.
year. We'll figure something out for some holiday cheer.
I'm sure there'll
Maybe.
be some spicy stuff, maybe V2 stuff out this way. I
Maybe. We need to talk about that. I've been playing it. Well, hey, that's your homework. Go
Yeah.
play some V2, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about it next week.
We'll definitely find something interesting to do for sure. But thanks so much for listening, everyone. It's been a hell of a time, and you know where to find us. Moy, where can they find you?
Twitch.tv/Moydog, and YouTube.com/Moydog.
Awesome. And you know where to find me, youtube.com/KrimerCut. Until next time, guys, take it easy, be safe, and peace out.
Peace.